Today's intention, presence. Find that when I take a deep breath multiple times throughout the day, it brings me to presence. That's my intention.
Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome to Student of Intention, where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go. Hello, friends. Welcome to Student of Intention, this little corner of the podcasting world where we spark, strengthen, and support self-discovery. It's a beautiful morning here in the Creative Palace. I'm super stoked to welcome today's guest in person in studio. Good friend Sean. I'll share a little bit more about him in a second. As is customary, sharing a little story from the weekend, I ventured off to La Quinta, California in preparation for the half Ironman that I'll be racing in about a month's time. And this story is about dinner, actually, during our weekend. My friend Ryan joined me for the weekend, and we sat down to dinner at a little Mexican restaurant there in town. And it just led to a fascinating moment where we were interacting with our waiter. His name was Abiud. And I think Ryan and I sort of operate this way almost unconsciously now, where we take an interest in the person that's serving us. And I make a point to understand Abiud, his background, where he's from, and in particular, what he recommends. I want to know what he thinks is good. I want to know how he likes things prepared. And just that little interest, it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes time between Ryan and I asking a couple questions about his perspective that led to him saying something just kind of heart-wrenching a little bit, where he said, hey, when I meet good guys like you, it makes me feel important. And he went on to say that he used to date a woman that was, that's beautiful, smart, successful. She's a lawyer. And in fact, she comes from a family of lawyers. And as a waiter, he never felt good enough for her. But he likes his job, and it's a pleasure to serve people who appreciate his work. And that just really caught Ryan and I off guard, because we were just like, wow, man, this dude has been so touched by just the little questions that we asked, by us noticing him, that he felt compelled to share that story. He went on to share a story about his name and how he was bullied when he was young for his name. And his name actually, for what it's worth, means father of praise. And it was, I think it was a, two-pronged sort of moment. On one hand, it was like, this is great. This is the type of connection that I live for. And then, on the other hand, the sort of disappointment was like the realization that little tiny question, this little interest, was something he's not used to. It was something that was so profound for him. And there should just definitely be more of that. So take that for what it's worth. As you go about your day today, realize that you can be that someone to notice someone by, asking a simple question to make him feel heard, an acknowledging nod to make her feel seen, a thoughtful reply to make them feel understood. Just curious, warm, and compassionate gestures might make someone feel important. And with that, I'll welcome today's guest, Sean. Sean and I met at a retreat last year in Idlewild, California, the retreat that catalyzed my journey of intention, writing the 5 Buckets book, starting this podcast, and the Student of Intention newsletter. We've grown very close since then. And Sean's had a bit of his own journey of intention, writing a men's journal called Calling Man, launching Functional Hero, a health and wellness program for first responders, completing a full Ironman, all while working full-time as chief engineer for the Los Angeles Fire Department. And I guess we shouldn't forget Sean just got married to his beautiful wife, Lindsay, 2 weeks ago. So
beautiful.
Pretty full life, man. Congrats, Sean, on that wedding, and welcome to Student of Intention.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, I mean, let's start with the wedding, dude. I was there 2 weeks ago.
Darn right you were.
You know, I think the standard question is, how's married life?
Unbelievable. I'm still waiting for the impromptu, I'm Sean and this is my wife introduction. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. We have yet to really do it yet. We haven't had that opportunity, but man, it just, and I'm sure you're familiar, man. It has that little exciting buzz every time I say my wife, you know. Mm-hmm. There's something beautiful, special, and very, very deep about it.
Yeah, man.
I can get into that for a while, but yeah, it is. Like the first morning I woke up next to her, there's no doubt in my mind, you know, and then the mind is good at creating doubt. And I literally mean no doubt in my mind that this is the woman I'm meant to be with. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing her in the morning, and she's one of those people that wakes up super bright and, you know, spunky, which I need, because I wake up like a hibernating bear. So I'm more so grunt in the morning, where she's like, good morning. And I just remember that joy. That first morning we were married. It's something intense. It's passionate. And yeah, it's one of those things you almost can't explain until you feel.
That's right, man. And what a way to sort of punctuate just a packed year for you, man. And I want to start with Lindsay and start with our partners with regards to the creative pursuits that we find ourselves in, the, you know, healthy athletic pursuits that we find ourselves in. I rattled some of those off. You know, what's it been like to do those things in front of a partner like Lindsay, side by side with a partner like Lindsay? How has she shown support, shared in your struggles, shared in your triumphs? You know, and again, like that, and then you go get married after all this. Like, what? It's just like, it's like leading up to that almost.
One of the things that I had in my vows is that she is by far the easiest person to believe in that I've ever met. And we both have firm beliefs that, like, she doesn't make me happy, I don't make her happy. Happiness comes from within, right? My job is to help empower her to find her own, and likewise. And it's an amazing feeling when you both feel like you're marrying way up. you get that?
Marrying way up,
you know, and it is, she's a goal setter. She is a boss bitch, you know, excuse my French, but man, this girl will bring the best energy to the room and bring you with her every time. And that was obvious from our first date. You know, I think we high-fived within the first 3 minutes. We're like, we're going to get along. You know? And yeah, I think one of the things that attracts us to each other is the fact that we set goals. We set big goals and we go for them. You know, what's the saying? A dream is a goal without a plan. And so we help each other plan, right? We're big dreamers, and, you know, okay, let's get it done. And that started from everything from, I remember, was this 1.5 years, 2 years ago now, we did 75 hard. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's 75 days where you do 2 workouts a day, 40 minutes each. One has to be outside. You take a photo every day so you can progress. You drink a gallon of water every day. You read at least 10 pages every day. You take a cold shower every day. And then you pick a diet. Doesn't matter what it is, but something that will improve your life, and you stick to it. No cheat days for 75 days. And as soon as, if you have one day off, then you start over. And I wanted to do it. And of course, Lindsay goes, yeah, I'm in, you know. And it was during a time where I was healing from a back injury. Come to find out I got 5 blown discs, and, you know, was battling with the mindset, you know, do I go about life thinking, man, I have a injured back. Oh, I got an injured back, being one of those guys. Or, you know, if you want a good book to read, Relentless by Tim Grover, but he got me into the mindset of, you don't have a bad back, you have an untrained back. So train it. And that's what he took. He's the trainer, you know, that took Jordan and Kobe and Dwayne Wade and all those guys to the next level, by saying, look, you know, we're all going to have injuries. So you don't work out to get back to where you were when you got injured. It's a sign that like, okay, I can do better. And so I took 75 hard on during that time, and, you know, she did it with me, and I'm definitely stronger than I was before. You know, I had days where I couldn't even put socks on or get out of bed, and I haven't had that. And
dude, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that on top of everything you did this year, you went through a severe back injury. You're going to get surgery.
Yep. Yeah. The first appointment, the doc goes, all right, let's sign you up. And I go, no, well, let me do me first. Let me try this. And I was able to, I guess, conquer getting on the surgical table once before with a left shoulder injury. You know, I got a torn rotator cuff. Who doesn't, right? Everyone's got shoulder, knee, and back problems. And so it's just how far we want to promulgate them. But I was able to PT and, you know, healthy lifestyle my way out of it. And I mean, dude, I couldn't rotate my arm to look at my watch. That's how bad it was. I would have to pick up my arm to look at my watch. So I started wearing my watch on the right hand instead. And it was bad. And also, all right, let's sign you up for surgery. And I said, nope, you know, let me go at this. Let me see if my body can heal itself first. And you know, I'm a big advocate of not getting on the surgical table. Western medicine does two things very well, but a lot of things very wrong. And I think cutting too soon is one of the things it does very wrong. So, and that comes from being raised by a doctor. So if that doesn't tell you something, he believes it, I believe it. So if we can, you know, encourage the body to heal itself. And then if it's trauma or acute illness, let Western medicine do its thing, right? If my leg's going to fall off after a car accident, I probably can't herb and PT that way back to healing.
Right.
Might need the doctor on the doctor table for that one. But yeah, so we did 75 hard together, and, you know, we do a lot together. We commit together. And I think that's what makes, you know, these big dreams turn into goals, is having the right partner like her. And we talk about it all the time. We go, you know, imagine how hard it'd be if we're in Big Sur for our honeymoon, and she wants to go for a jog, right? Let's go for a few mile trail run. It's like, yeah, heck yeah, I'm up. Let's go. Imagine if she wanted to do that, or vice versa, and the other person didn't. You know, yes, there's awesome part about, you know, doing trail runs on your own and stuff, but the fact that we get to do all that together, and then the conversations we come into together. And, you know, there's one other day in Big Sur, we went for what we thought was going to be a 2-mile hike, and ended up being a little over 9 miles. And neither of us had water, and we just said, yeah, all right, well, let's enjoy it. Right. like in just imagining, you know, for our relationship, how beautiful it was that we could both just harness and step into that moment together. Be like, yeah, I mean, we'll get our way back. We'll have water later, you know, and our puppy Nala's with us. She'll be good, you know. But in this time, you know, it's a little longer, but we saw sights. We saw this grove. We saw redwoods that you couldn't get to unless you did the 9-mile hike. And, you know, we were able to capture that together versus possibly being in a negative, complaining, mindset. And so setting goals, setting big dreams and turning them into goals is easy with her. You know, we believe in each other a lot. And, I drew this graph for her. I like writing her notes. And I've
seen those notes.
Yeah.
You're really setting the high bar for us other dudes, bro.
It's cute. She saves every one of them. It's so adorable. And so I'll write notes a lot of times before I leave, or, you know, if she has a long day. And one of them I wrote was a graph. And it, you know, on the y-axis, it's personal growth. And then on the x-axis, it's time. And it's just this steady, you know, ebb and flow that kind of increases throughout my life. And then there's this jettison point where all of a sudden it skyrockets to, you know, never land. And that point is, I put an arrow next to it and it says Sean meets Lindsay. Just because, I mean, there is something very, very powerful about having the right life partner. You know, to quote what Jack Nicholson, and as good as it gets, he's like, you make me want to be a better man. Stop. But I get it, dude. I absolutely get what that means. Like, you could be shooting for the moon, you meet the right person, and all of a sudden it just becomes capable, it becomes doable. And that's when I was able to set goals like the Ironman that I always had. It's like, oh yeah, time to pull that trigger. Or creating my own company like Functional Hero. It's like, oh yeah, all right, time to pull that trigger, or the Calling Man, and just like having her behind me going, yeah, yes, you can. And you have the person that literally holds your heart in her hands saying, yeah, who are you kidding? Of course you can. There's nothing like it. So,
dude, well said. And we have so much we could spit off of that. I mean, I really want to talk about that decision to not go on the operating table and like what that looked like. And then to follow that up with the full Ironman is just insane.
Yeah.
But I think to follow up this conversation about the importance of partners, it seems fitting to talk about your book, Calling Man, because you talk a little bit about that, right? And what it means to be a man, basically, in 2021 and beyond. So I think let's look at that book through the lens of this partnership that you built with Lindsay, and expand upon the idea, what you wrote about, and how it's been.
Absolutely. I mean, it should be noted that it was a spawn of thought from our retreat. So that's where it first began, right?
Which is crazy. Two books, two creative pursuits coming out of the same retreat. And also worth noting that Sean and I sat side by side in every meditation circle with a group of 20. So I don't know if the universe just dropped a little bit of that creativity and it just spilled on each of us.
First time we sit down, hey, I'm Sean. Hey, I'm Bobby. All right. Okay. That was it. Yeah. So, I mean, from that retreat, I think what that retreat helped me realize was one of my passions is men, in the most powerful way I could say it is, the health of men, and how much it will. I remember walking, we were on a hike, and this older couple walks by us, and his wife is just like badgering him, right? Just saying very not nice things to the guy. And I couldn't hear the words. You could just see it though in her voice and how she was saying it. And I just pointed out to Lindsay, one, how heartbreaking it was, but two, look at his posture. Look at how he responds. Yeah. That might be, he literally might have invented, something we use every day and be one of the smartest, kindest, but look at what his woman can do. And it's heart-wrenching when, and that can go vice versa, right? That's toxic femininity right there is happening. But what does toxic masculinity do? The same exact thing. We've seen that for decades, right? And that's, the power of feminism, creating the whole movement right now is amazing. It's beautiful and it's awesome, but it does not come at the expense of the other. And that's right.
It should not.
No, it should not. That's not, in that end, that's not strength, and that's weakness. And, for years we saw the power of masculinity in a toxic way come about. And as a result, you had weak femininity, right? You had suppressed femininity. And then, over through hundreds of years of just push back and push forward, the woman has risen in a beautiful fashion. And it's amazing. And it's unbelievable, especially here in America and, our Western cultures, where the woman can be the power that she is, like how unbelievable the woman is. And, there are still some cultures that don't allow that, and how unreal that seems, right? You go to some Eastern cultures and you're like, really?
Yeah.
Right? Like what just happened in Kabul, and you hear about all that stuff, and it's just unbelievable, unfathomable. You're taking literally the most powerful creature on the planet and trying to suppress it, right? The woman is beautiful. If the woman, though, rises to strength and promotes that toxic femininity, it creates weak masculinity. And what I've kind of noticed in the past decade or so is the rise of weak masculinity. And it's heart-wrenching to me. I think in order for one to be strong, so does the other. In order for the man to be strong, so does the woman, and vice versa. And I think men have started to lose shape, hope, and their path, me included. We struggle with finding, what does masculine mean, right? And I remember having a conversation with Lindsay early in our relationship. She says something like, and she works in sports, so she works around a lot of guys, a lot of men. And she goes, I can get masculine real fast. And then she says the traits of an asshole. And I go, babe, that's not masculine. That's a boy, right?
Damn.
That's a little boy acting out. She goes, what do you mean? I go, masculine. Masculine is never quitting. It doesn't mean stomping on someone. Masculine is figuring out the solution together, not berating someone. Yes, stand up on your own 2 feet, but bring the other person with you. That's masculine. Masculine is taking the storm on the face and saying, we shall go another step, right? The feminine comes in strong by saying, yes, we will together, right? The man builds the house, the woman makes it a home. The man is something that forges forward, and the woman produces meaning. Like, there are these depths of which we, and each of us can have both, right? A man can have feminine traits and vice versa. Like, it's how I see these character traits coming through, but obviously some gravitate more towards another, and they're both strengths in themselves, but also empowering together. And that's the beautiful thing that I feel with Lindsay too, is we definitely promote and empower those beautiful traits of ours. Her feminism promotes my masculinity and vice versa. And so I shared with her this passion, and she had read some things that I'd written, old journal entries and whatnot. And one of the things I love that she always says about me too is she goes, man, Sean, you are such a man. And it's very flattering, right?
Well, I want to interrupt you a little bit, just because, man, you just said a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what's troubling about what you said is, like, it's just so nuanced, right? Mm-hmm. And we live in a world where nuance doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. And when you talk about toxic femininity, when you talk about the weakness of men sort of going by the waist or coming into its own in some ways because of female actions, you're just on a slippery slope. You're in trouble, right?
Right.
And compared to if someone actually is there, right? If somebody saw you getting married to Lindsay and how that event unfolded and the words that both of you used to describe the other and describe your relationship, like there's so much depth and there's so much crossover of those masculine and feminine traits that, like, it's just obvious. It's obvious that this comes from a place of good. This comes from a place of growth. This comes from a solution mindset, right? And not one of division, not one of siding with one energy over the other, one gender over the other. But man, those same words taken out of context, read, on a headline or what have you, right? Like that's the trouble that we're in. And I'm just curious, has that confronted you? Has that reality confronted this thinking, or has everything just been embraced with open arms?
So far embraced. But, there's to every good there is, no good deed goes unpunished, I think is a common phrase in my line of work, that doesn't matter how awesome or cool or whatever you think you are, there's always someone to put you down. Yeah. So, but it's definitely come with open arms, but it can definitely, division is not the it's not the motive here, right? The point is, how can one empower the other, right? As the woman gains strength, how can the man empower that as well, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes a strong man to empower a strong woman, and vice versa.
Yeah. And when you write that when you wrote that in the book, I guess tell a little bit about the process of getting this thing done, because you whipped it into shape pretty quick.
Yeah. That's the nature of writing, I guess. When you've been thinking on it for long enough, it just starts to spew out. But it also had to do with part of this accountability group called K4, and K4 men, it's men from all over the nation, some in Canada even, via Slack channel and Zoom calls and stuff. But K4 means King of Four Houses, and the four houses being the four archetypes of a man. And the women have very similar ones, but obviously, embedded to them. But for the man, it's king, magician, warrior, and lover. And the four archetypes we have all four, but we obviously will reside in one house or one archetype a little more than others. And the goal is to become, the man in full, where you are the king of all four houses. And to break them down real quick, like a quick bumper sticker slogan for each of them. So king is the creator, right? He envisions the kingdom, right? He's the leader. He's the one that says, I dream and I plan big things. The magician is the potion maker, right? The meticulous. He is the one that makes the plan. He's the one that sets goals and orchestrates them piece by piece by piece, right? He's the one that creates that beauty out of the detail. The warrior is the hard yes, hard no, right? Just get shit done. Like that's the one that you pull out of the bag when you're in your workout, right? And you're hitting that wall. It's like, it's no time to think details here. I don't want to think about the detail of my knees and my lungs hurting and, no, I just get shit done, right? He's the one who forges through. And then the lover is the one who bonds, creates meaning, and brings it all together with community. So we have, as men, we have all four archetypes. And obviously you can hear that and be like, oh yeah, I obviously reside with that one or that one a little more. But the understanding of healthy masculinity is creating, awareness of there's a time and a place for each, right? Warrior, workout. Warrior, maybe not at the dinner place, right? You and your lovely lady having dinner at an Italian restaurant, maybe not a good time to be the warrior. Bring out the lover and maybe the king, the dreamer, right? And just understanding, there are times, like, for example, I got in a conversation with a buddy. He just had his second kid, and he was sharing how he needs a release of, we play volleyball, we compete and all this stuff. And he goes, man, sometimes I just feel like it's weird how I need this release of competition, I need this release of just like physicality. I need to do those CrossFit workouts and I need it. And it feels weird because it's taking my time away from, my wife and kids. And I go, whoa, my man, you need to realize a stronger warrior in you means a stronger lover in you. You need that release because that's who you are. That's your fire. Right. Yeah. He played college football. He's avid athlete. You see him on the beach. The guy jumps through the freaking sky. It's unreal. He's one of the best athletes out there. Yeah, dude, you're built to compete. Let's do that. Yeah. But then when you leave the court and go home, leave it on the court. Otherwise what starts to happen is it seeps out into different areas. And this is where, we start to see the toxicity in our own manhood is I didn't release the warrior at the gym or in competition in a healthy way. So now I'm starting to compete with my wife or compete with my friends in I don't even know how unhealthy way. Right. Or, I didn't release the lover with, my wife or with my good friends or whatever, right? I didn't do that bonding, and now I'm seeking for it in weird places like a boss at work or, I connect way too strongly with just someone in passing and wonder why they looked at me wrong or something like that. It's like, cause you're not getting that connection where in the healthy places, and in having that in totality, having that complete experience is the man in full. So from there, those big,
the four archetypes.
Yeah, the four archetypes.
I mean, those are really awesome. So we're talking king, lover, magician, warrior.
Yeah. So with those in mind, understanding healthy masculinity is someone who embodies all four, right? We do our best daily. It's a daily practice. Everything we do is a daily practice. There's nothing that just gets put in rhythm and then just stays that way, right? We're in constant growth and change. And how do we promote this? So I'm a big journaler, right? And one of the things that I got into in the past few years was daily journaling and mindset. How do I establish my own positive, forward-thinking mindset every day, every morning? And journaling is huge for me. And it just came into me that hey, I should blend these things together. What if we had a journal that promotes healthy masculinity? So it's a mindset calibration. It's, puts you in a gratitude mindset and forethought, manifestation, affirmation. So you're putting yourself on a healthy, vibrant foot to start the day. And you're also challenging yourself in each of the king's 4 houses, And so based off that, right, would we not be putting our best foot forward and becoming healthier men? And that was my goal, and that's my dream, my passion. And that's birthed the calling man. And the calling man, why I called it that. And it was funny, as you try to figure out a title and a name and a brand and all this stuff. I love the idea of the thought that before us, we all have people we look up to. We all have, especially people in history. I think my childhood hero was Jackie Robinson, and guys I'd love to have lunch with that are deceased now, right? You always have that question would be like, Marcus Aurelius, or, obviously Jesus would be amazing. That'd be cool. And so you come up with these ideas, and you start to realize these men, they didn't establish something and then said, look, here's my imprint on the world. Like, they established something and said, do yours too. Right? They had this. Do
yours too.
Yes. They had this idea that, look, our legacy is not, just, I don't live to build a legacy for myself. I live to build a legacy for others. And I stepped into something, right? Let's take Jackie Robinson, for example. Steps into baseball as Major League Baseball as the first colored player. And obviously we saw that was amazing. He killed it. He ripped it. He did amazing. He faced every storm face on, right? And just did it with dignity. And I love the movie 42. It really portrays that really well. And he went forward and he said, all right, he didn't go say like, look, I did it. He goes, look, we did it. Now it's your turn. Step into the light. You guys got this. We got this together, and he completely reshaped and reframed baseball. And it's amazing. His story's amazing. The guy, if you ever want to look at an amazing biography, look at him. The guy is just an achiever in every way possible. And the calling man is the man who steps into, his purpose and then calls others to do the same so that they may go forward and call others to do the same. And to you, I deem the calling man. And that's where I came up with the idea.
Love it, man. Love it. Well, congrats. It looks great. I have 2 copies. I actually gave one to my cousin Buck.
Nice.
Because we're supposed to share with others here.
Heck yeah, we are. Yes. Give it forward.
Oh man. One of the things I'm really jamming on lately too is when I get to talk to individuals that do a good job blending, and we'll say art and science, for lack of a better phrase. And you seem to do it really, really well. See, I look at myself as a person who just, the art side of things, I'll hang out all day, and what, examples are, stoicism, philosophy, writing, journaling, etc. Like that's my world. And I love to express the importance of virtues and qualities in that sense, in an artistic sense and in sort of a human sense. But I'm also really appreciative and somewhat enamored with the folks that look at the world through a scientific lens. Things like energy, things like physics, things like, et cetera. And yet lately I'm really running into people that do a good job of bringing them together. And I think you're one of those guys because you have you obviously have a good background academically. Would you get your doctorate in again?
No doctorate, just.
Oh, I thought I saw a PhD there.
I'm working on it.
Okay. My bad.
Yeah, I just started that tenor, which that'll take a while, but it's health and human performance.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, you're one of those guys that I think embodies those 2 qualities really well and actually layers on how one sort of complements the other, even though a lot of times they seem like total polar opposites. But I think you do a good job of that. And I just caught on to that as you're explaining your ideas for the calling man, the need for physicality as a man, and, compare that to the need for artistic expression, etc.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's finding, I think the way my mind works is, I look for meaning in everything and then I want to explain it. So if you watch a sunset, let's say, for example, and it has meaning to you, right? There's something beautiful about everyone stops and pauses at a sunset. Why? Why does that happen? What is actually happening? And the chemicals and triggers that it will cause in your brain. Now, why do we have those chemicals and triggers? Are they there so that we can recognize the sunset, or does the sunset trigger them in us, right? Are we created to enjoy, or are we falling into this, biological rhythm that's like, no, you're just part of it, so you enjoy it. And I like to think that we are created to enjoy it, right? We are. One of the questions I will ask people is, do you think you're a human being living in the universe, or are you what the universe is doing? And
I'm the latter.
Yes, you are what the universe is doing. We are in this rhythm, in this connection, in this just divine experience where we are allowed to just enjoy every moment like a sunset. We are allowed to experience it, pain and pleasure all together, right? And we're built that way for a reason. So when you find, we are such complicated beings. So, if anyone ever tries to simplify the human body, they're doing it wrong. Because, dude, it is layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And I mean, just listen to all the quote unquote gurus or people talking about health and wellness and whatnot. It's something new every day. It's unbelievable. Yeah, but this chemical, if you brine it with that, you take turmeric, but you do it with black pepper extract. It's like you got to turn it on.
You think by now we'd be a little further along, but we are
right?
Not, because it's so complicated.
Yeah, we complicate it, and then we try to figure out the way to hack it, essentially, and it's so advanced. And to understand that, well, with something so advanced, there must be tons of room for beauty, tons of room for art, tons of room, right? We are created with this purpose behind us, and so enjoying both, seeing both is, I don't know, I just like seeing both sides of that curtain, I guess.
Oh, dude, and you see it really well. I really appreciate it, and that was an awesome explanation of my take on the universe. You actually made me think of this story that I told in one of my newsletters a long time ago. I titled the newsletter "The Experience Machine," and that's a name for the human being.
Yeah.
An experience machine. And where I sort of had the realization was on a long bike ride that I just suddenly was dosed with this awareness of like all these things that were going right for me at that moment to be able to fully enjoy that exact experience, right? The things like the gears of the bike, all those failure points just working beautifully, cohesively to propel me forward, right? Wider things like, the beautiful sunshine that was there for me to be able to ride on that well manicured path. And that's just the external factors. Then you look at my body, right? And, 20 miles an hour, the heart pumping, the lungs working in collaboration with the glutes, et cetera. Like I just had this sort of mind blowing moment, like, man, this is quite the experience when you really, really take stock on everything going on. And, I'm actually going in with this, I'm going into my half Ironman with that lens of I'm not really going to compete per se, except for, the self competition that ultimately will happen. I'm going in with the mindset of like, I'm going to experience this, right? I get to experience this. Did you get elements of that when you ran your full? And was it the universe sort of experiencing itself in a very unique and interesting way?
100%. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you reminded me of another point. So in the science background, so here's how you combine science with art or science with creative, right? Scientifically speaking, did you know, right, the entire state of the universe is in a state of entropy. So it's breaking apart, falling apart, destroying itself. Yet something here keeps the gravitation of the planet, keeps the atmosphere, keeps our bodies together, keeps us growing. What in the world is that energy, right? If we're just science, so to speak, then we should just be falling apart, theoretically speaking. Mm-hmm. Yet we have this consciousness, we have this ability to appreciate, we have like, what is that? And so by tapping into that creative spirit, I think we have tons of names for it. Love, God, the divine, whatever. You call it what you want, but the same energy that shines the sun as it create life on the planet is the same one that puts the electrical impulse in my heart. They're the same forms of energy. So you call what you want. Energy is energy, but to be able to experience that on a deep, deep level, I think is beyond, yes, we are what the universe is doing.
Oh man. Yeah. Sounds like you've thought about this a little bit.
Just a wee bit. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I looked forward to in my Ironman, one, it was hitting new milestones that I'd never hit before. So,
and I guess, what is an Ironman?
An Ironman is the triathlon, right? And guys came together in the 60s or 70s, I believe. And I should know this because my cousin was there in Hawaii when they came up with the first. So the longest swim, the longest bike ride, and the longest run. So at the time, combined. Yeah. So it's a 2.5 mile swim, 2.4 exactly. And then a 112 mile bike ride, which is the century ride, and then a marathon run, which is 26.2 miles. And you just do back to back to back. And their whole goal was, hey, we're super fit. Let's just prove it to ourselves that we can reach a new milestone. So let's do all the hardest things just in one day. And I mean, since then, people keep coming up with more and more and more, like ultras, and where you run 100 miles and you bike 1,000. I don't know. They just come up with insane things. But this is the hardest one that I know of. And I chose to do it because of that, right? We all have our Everest, so to speak, and my Everest is not Mount Everest, right? I don't have a longing to go climb the tallest mountain. I do have a longing to push my body though, and push it past limits. There's a gift of a body that I've been given, and man, is it a gift. How many injuries that I've been overcome. Like I almost lost my arm when I was 2. Shattered it so bad that they didn't know if they could repair it. And when you're an infant and you're a toddler, you have lots of cartilage, and it creates what's called a green stick fracture, where the bone actually tears. It doesn't break. And with a tear, it doesn't heal right. And so you can have a gimp arm, or you can just not grow at all. And so at 2 years old, they're in fear of like, man, this guy's arm might not grow at all, in which case amputation, in which case, right, your whole life is altered. Yeah. And that doctor, he spent, I think it was almost 9 hours in the surgery, and he would go to finish up and he'd say, nope, it's not perfect. And he did that 3 times until it was perfect. And I've had 0 issues with my arm. It's unbelievable. And I get it's just an arm, but to think of how much that would have affected and been highs and lows, ebbs and flows in my life. But that guy studied for years and devoted his life so that one day he could be the doctor to save a little boy's life, save his arm. And so I think about the gift that the body is. And
I love that. I love calling it the gift.
It absolutely is, every day. Understanding again, right? If we're in a state of entropy, like we don't always have this. So know that you have it now, push it, use it, live it, right? Love it. That's the purpose. And Ironman had always been a goal of mine. As a kid, my dad shared stories about he had done a bunch of half Ironmans, and I think he tried once or twice at the full, and he ended up not being able to. He got injured, during the race, and then he gave up triathlons. And it was a goal of his, but it wasn't huge. But for some reason, it just got put into my mind. It's like, yes, I will do that one day. And finally got called out on it. My buddy Wade goes, "Hey, dude, I've been thinking about doing Ironman. Want to do it?" And I go, "Yep." I've been saying it for years. Now's the time. And
yeah, fresh off of big back injury. Now's the time.
Right. Exactly. So, that again, that's a mindset calibration. Am I off a back injury, or do I now have a trained back? It's like, well, if I have a trained back, go do stuff, right? I hate the mindset of like, oh, I got an injured back. Like, well, do you? Because if you live like that, you will live with an injured back. But if you like, what did the Neanderthals do if they got an ache and pain? They just figured it out, right? They still lived, right? What did people do before we had X-rays and MRIs? Like, I'm just going to push through that and be capable because I have to, otherwise I won't survive. So I had that mindset. I'm doing everything I can twice a day, doing the PT and doing the nutrition and doing the flexibility, the mobility, the strength exercises to make sure this thing can operate well. And, no, I don't need surgery anymore. This is amazing. So yeah, if I'm trained, might as well keep doing, right? Don't limit myself. So that was, yes, another, I guess, skyrocket goal of mine. Like, yeah, if you want to prove to yourself you healed your back, do this. Yeah. Right.
Timely, baby.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so it would, back to the original question, right? Is the Ironman, did it feel like I was the universe experiencing itself? And yes, 100%. There's something that happens, right? Our mind, we have such ways. We have the mind and the brain. The mind, we have the creative emotional side, and we have the logical, more evolved side, I guess, the most recent, the youngest part of the brain. And they go back and forth all the time, between making decisions for everything we do, right? How we experience everything. But what's important to realize is that everything we do is an emotional decision. And you can look that up. Every article, everything, I don't care how logical you think you are, every decision you make is emotional. So you have the logical side just trying to convince your emotional brain until it says, yes, that feels good. I'm doing that, right? Or yes, that feels more important, even though it doesn't feel right. Or, you know what I mean? You can come up with as many decisions as you want. It will always be the emotional side. And what we are lost in right now is we are over analytical a lot of times, and we get in our own way, right? Too much in your head, analysis to paralysis, right? We find ourselves there, and we're losing touch with our emotional side, even though that is the decision maker of the brain. Like that's how we move forward in life. And now we have tons of suppressed emotions, right? You have all these, Freudian examples of, things in your childhood get lost, and you can't, they come out in different ways all throughout your adulthood. You spend your first 26 years developing an ego, and then the rest of your life trying to get rid of it. Like, what is this, right? Trying to understand. And the whole point of me diving into this is to realize that we have walls. We have built these walls, and whether it's a protective mechanism or not, we've built these walls to keep us from processing and going through maybe painful, maybe weak, maybe just areas of ourselves that we don't want to visit. And if you want to break through those walls, put yourself in discomfort, right? Fast for a few days. You're going to go through some walls, right? Do an Ironman. You're going to go through some walls. And I knew that was going to happen. I was looking forward to this. And one of the most beautiful parts of, going through something that you've never experienced is that your brain, the way we operate. And I remember seeing this, when as a first responder, as a firefighter, when I saw some of the most like traumatic scenes I'd ever seen, the brain has to relate to something it knows in order to increase its knowledge. So it can't just literally learn a new language without you understanding your first language, right? And it was weird. The only thing I knew on some of those traumatic scenes, the only thing I'd ever seen relative to that was horror movies, right? And so I'm like out in these scenes, and I see this like horrific, scenario, and my eyes literally had the image of a movie flicker. It was as if I was watching it through a movie. So my brain was doing its best to process by relation, right? And that's the closest thing it had until it could understand and process it fully as what it was. And I had to be put in that place of discomfort and uncomfort to understand and like essentially evolve my mind. Well, if you want to skyrocket that, you go into places of extreme, outside the box thinking, whether it's deep meditation like we did on that retreat, or, just really extreme physical experiences is another way to get there. And the Ironman, was definitely that. I hit some walls sometimes in training, but when you're...
Yeah, I was going to say, during the actual event, was there a particular moment particular wall that was hit? Or were you pretty balanced throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, great question. So, both. Yeah, both. The swim, I almost started crying because I hit such a big wall.
Damn it, that's right in the beginning.
Yeah. I almost started crying in the water, which is kind of hard.
Yeah.
By the way, crying in water is like, I don't know what's going on. I have my goggles on. But
oh my God, dude.
So that's where my dad had gotten injured on both. Is he had aspirated water, his lungs are bleeding, and so I knew that I needed to get through that, to make him proud. And he was there, by the way. So that was, man, my dad's 80. He's been through 3 different cases that almost killed him, and life death scenarios, and still standing, still kicking. So it is a blessing every day that I get to hang out with that man. And I'm in the water, and it's dark, it's murky. You start your Ironman before the sun comes up, essentially, depending on the time of year. And so it is dark, and one of my top 3 fears is sharks, and it's in the ocean. We're doing the swim in the ocean. And of course, fight or flight, your fear mind starts just going bonkers, right? You don't have music. You don't have anything to distract you. It's just you in the water, you in the dark water, right? You can't see the ground. You can't see below you. It's not a pool. It's some scary shit,
It's the Pacific, baby.
Yeah. And it just starts going haywire with it. And is my fear really sharks, or is it just the terrifying unknown? Well, I think asking the question begs the answer, but I started having these envisionments of a shark coming up. And then I realized I have this reoccurring dream of this same scenario of this shark coming up. And it always stops with a shark coming at me, right? And you either wake up or go on to another dream. But it starts hitting me over and over and over again. And I mean, terrifying the living day out of me. And out of nowhere, something massive goes right beneath me, enough to like push me off my course. And I went bonkers. I was like, what the? No. Right? I sit straight up. I start coughing some water. I was like, what the hell was that? And come to find out, it was a massive sea lion. Sticks his head up, starts barking at me. Apparently I had swam too close to his cubs and his female, and he was just protecting me. And so, my buddy's dad on the paddleboard started paddling. He'd be like, go this way, go this way. I was like, okay, holy cow. Whoa. And I go, just keep swimming. And, to quote Dory,
I caught it.
Let's go, push through this fear. And all of a sudden it started hitting me like this over and over feeling of victory, that like, I just conquered the shark. And in my mind, I kept going, Dad, I conquered the shark. As if he was right there next to me, like, Dad, I conquered the shark. And this fear of the unknown. And I'd never done something like the Ironman, and I'd never run a marathon, never biked 100 miles, never swam 2.5. And, except training once, I hit 2.5 in the swim. But besides that, I had never done this. And it hit me that, if we can't envision the unknown, then we're afraid of it. And I was afraid of, everything that could or might happen in this unknown, in this length. It took me almost 14 hours of just like moving, of exercise, of 140.6 miles of movement. Like, I've never done that. And it's terrifying. And all of a sudden I conquered the shark. Meaning all I have to do is just keep moving. I don't need to fear the unknown. It's like, just keep moving. You got this. And that was the feeling, this like resounding feeling that hit me all of a sudden. And from there on out, like, I hauled ass on the swim, got out of the water. So side note, our events had been canceled because of the pandemic. So me and 2 of my buddies had to put our own on. So we did it the original way. And my cousin geeked out when he heard this, because this is how he did it, is they just created their own course. There was no, water stations, transition stations. People weren't, holding your hand in between and making sure your bike was set up and all this. It was just us, which means we had to create all the logistics. We had to bring all our own stuff. We had to like just do it. There was no one cheering us on, essentially. It was just us. And so the 3 of us went through it. And when I realized, like, I just had to keep moving, it was like, okay, let's just go and get out of the water something like 15, 20 minutes ahead of the other guys. But we had promised to do the bike ride together. And so I just like hung out and ate and like high-fived. My dad was there and I told him this story. He starts crying and I was just like, you know, this is amazing. Get on our bike and start going. And man, so another wall that hit was in the ride of competition. Like, do you have to compete? And obviously you said that bit of self-competition hit, but of course, all of a sudden I'm with just a couple other guys like, hey, I'm going to win. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. And it just hit me. It's like, you're in this together. Keep with that. Keep with that. Keep with that. Like, stop competing. Like, these are your boys. These are like, you train together. You're doing this together. You decided to. And so that was the next wall. Was there's times when competition is good and healthy, and there's times when it's not. And if you leave them, they will feel it, right? Mm-hmm. Or you might push yourself beyond your threshold and bonk, which might cause them to bonk. Like, you are strength in numbers, right? You got this together. And so we stuck together the whole ride and got back to right around. So we did it in Oceanside and we bike into the pier and our family.
Well, real quick too, on that point, like I think it's a really interesting point that I picked up with endurance sports in particular, is those little like bouts of competition or motivation, right? Or inspiration that can do you well in, say, something like football or basketball, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you get this little burst of like competitive spirit, right?
Yeah.
And you go and like, you go score a touchdown and you dunk or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like those little, those little moments really help you in those kind of sports. Yeah. In endurance sports, like the road is so long that actually like that little burst isn't, if you overindulge in it, it can really kill you.
Yep.
Down the road, right? Like you can, on a 112 mile bike ride, if you're just like, oh yeah, I'm feeling myself, and you go a lot faster for like 5 miles, like you just empty your tank.
Right.
And then you have a grueling, 75 miles after that. And it's one of the more, it's just humbling, period.
It really is. Yeah. And we actually, on the ride, our last half was just grueling winds. And if you ride on your bike, wind is huge. I mean, that literally, it makes it easier.
It sucks. Wind sucks.
It's not like a little bit harder. I think my average mile per hour is like 21, 22 until the wind hit. And then it was like 15, and you're huffing and puffing 15, not cruising. So it was, man almighty, it elongated our bike huge. I think our bike was 6.5 hours. But if we were on our own for that, oh my gosh. But the fact we had each other, and we kept cheering each other on and like, we got this. And, that was, what if I had gotten, listen to my prideful competitive bout, on mile 30, ooh, good for you.
And then that wind hits you.
And then that wind hits and I'm like, cool. The brotherhood aspect is gone all of a sudden, and nice. You're stuck
on an island.
Exactly. And then we agreed to do that and then do our run solo, so to speak. We created loops so that when we we got to Oceanside Pier and our family and friends were waiting for us, which was amazing. They had set this huge aid station up for us with tons of like waters and like food and stuff. It was unbelievable. And in hindsight, I think there's no other way I would have rather done this like first Ironman race, because like even my dad and my mom could like be there and watch us like finish, like do this. And they were there almost the whole time. Like, I mean,
it sounds very communal.
It was so communal. And I mean, few of them would run out and, run, portions of it with us just to cheer us on. And like Lindsay, my wife, probably did a half marathon on accident, just continually running out and cheering Wade on or cheering me or Adam on, just like, all right, I'm gonna run this next mile with you. And then they'd haul ass out and bring us water and goodies. Like while we're running, we're just like, oh geez. All right. Like, just in the hurt box. And that's where the wall hits like nothing before. So the swim's fun. The bike ride is long, but fun. And the run just sucks. So get ready for that. I think the first 3 miles were cool. And then, man, it just gets so long. And you just remember like, I'm not quitting. And, which full circle, I think that is the core of healthy masculinity, is never quitting. So if you ever wonder where, the strength of masculinity comes from, it's just don't ever quit. And I just kept moving, and that's where all the walls started hitting. The feeling of being a fraud. How many of us have that? Like, oh, I want to try these new ventures, but everyone will know I'm not, whatever excuse you come up with, right? And the whole I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. The narrative that we tell ourselves, and, you pick away. How do you tell, how many times have you looked yourself in the mirror and had a negative thought? It's like, that's you, man. That's, I'm looking at me. I should have nothing but empowering, I got this thoughts. And somehow, we have these negative, I'm not enough. I wish my shoulders were bigger. I wish I knew another language. I wish, and by saying I wish, it means I'm not enough without, instead of saying oh yeah, I should, strengthen my back. I would really like to learn that language because I am enough, because I got this, right? And so during that run was the master of hitting those walls, of feeling like a fraud, or feeling like, you
just can't do it.
You just can't do it. Yeah, exactly. And, I didn't know that was going to be my biggest wall. I knew that the run at some point or another would be where I hit, that deep emotional wall. And it started hitting me from all over of where I'd heard that message and why I'd heard that message, and then forgiving the people that had told me that message, and realizing, look, hurt people, right?
Mm-hmm. Hurt people.
Yes. So if someone is telling you you're not enough, that has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. Everything to do with them. In which case, do we point the finger, or do we hold ourselves in compassion for them? And that's where that biggest wall was for me, is I had heard and listened to enough people in my life putting me down, saying I'm not enough, saying you're a fraud, in whatever shape or form, knowing that's not true about myself, and knowing that's because they were hurting. And in my heart then, I was forgiving them one by one, and realizing, look, you have no room for hate for them, but compassion. And that is the biggest wall I hit. And that was amazing to get through. And I mean, dude, it was like doing a weekend retreat all over again, but in the run. And, I remember that, the feeling of elation in the release, the physical weight release that came up. I think it was probably mile 14 or 15. And everyone says mile 21 is the hardest or something, the last bit of the marathon, last 5-6 miles. My hardest was mile 9 to whatever that part was. So as soon as I hit mile 9, I completely bonked. I had no life in my face. And that's where I went deep within. And I hit that internal message of, hey, you are enough. Here's where you've heard different. Let that go. Forgive them, right? That is not who they want to be, right? I don't know anyone that wants to truly wake up and go around telling people they're dog shit, right? Mm-hmm. Not on purpose, maybe from pain inside they're projecting, but no one truly wants to do that. Let that go, forgive them, and meet them there in their compassion and with your compassion. And I was able to do that, internally, and it was a huge release. And so after that, the run became, I'm not going to say easy, but easier, right? I went through the quote unquote hardest parts of the run feeling lighter than I did before, feeling more energetic than I did before. I would get goosebumps every 5 to 10 minutes, the chills. And for me, that's a very spiritual experience. I used to pray, God, whenever I'm in your presence, let me know. And when I prayed that, he gave me massive chills. I just got goosebumps head to toe. And I was like, okay, got it. Right. And now, all the time I get them, and it's a reminder hey, you are in the presence. You are in his presence. And it's just a reminder that oh yeah, we're in flow, right? I'm living correctly. I did something that the divine hopes of me, right? And that was this beautiful moment in the run of just releasing this internal narrative that I didn't even know I had, because we pushed it so far down, right? And So there's my proof of just what the universe was doing.
Man, I don't know where to go from that one. I just ran the race with you
Yeah.
and learned a ton of lessons along the way. I mean, that last bit about being able to greet any sort of judgment, any sort of anger, hate, what have you, with compassion is one we can all take with us. And it's probably seared in your brain temporarily from the medium with which that message was delivered.
Yes, it is.
Mile 9 through 9:15 of a 140-mile race.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Release of the run portion. Man. Well, we're running a little short on time here. I got so much I could just dig in with you. I think we should just grab lunch after this. And
Yeah. Do it.
We'll keep this going. I guess for now, man, thank you for that story and for making the trip down here. And I guess just leave us with what's next, particularly just after that race, after the wedding and realizing that partnership. And I mean, so many of the things we talked about between the calling man and masculinity and femininity being in balance, the physical acts that we do, balancing out the art, the creative and emotional acts that we do. Like, man, everything sort of came together. And now I guess I'm just curious for you, like what's next on the radar?
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, you caught me at a good time. Literally just got back from our honeymoon yesterday.
And is it just a rest? Is it a rest for a little bit?
Yeah, I honestly think it is. I'm diving into my current projects, scaling. So I think we're a very distracted society, and I say that I mean me.
Yeah.
We're so easily distracted, whether it be the phone, television, or whatever, and becoming resolute is an issue. And finishing what we've started and then making it better. And so I aim to do that. I have a couple, my passion projects, Functional Hero and the Calling Man. I want to scale them, make them better, improve them. And so that's my big focus right now is, what's the next journal going to look like? And, what's the next step for Functional Hero looking like? How do I get that in the hands of more and more first responders, which we didn't even talk about,
No.
But yeah.
Because there's too much to talk about, bro. We would need a 3-hour pod.
I know. Yeah.
I love the Functional Hero stuff. I mean, we've collaborated on it because it's just a really interesting project. So yeah, we'll have you back here in the Creative Palace. I think we need Sean Travis round 2.
Yes, sir.
Well, cool. I guess let's leave listeners with, if they want the Calling Man, if they just want to follow you and see what you're up to, what's the best way to do that?
Social media handles on Instagram, Facebook. I don't really do anything else per distractions, but my personal is Sean Percy Travis, and then Calling Man is the Calling Man, and Functional Hero is Functional Hero, and both have a website, callingman.com or functionalhero.com. And yeah, I'm excited, man. Lots to come. It's super interesting when, in my full-time job, firefighter, paramedic, as an engineer now, and it's this venue of bringing people back to normal, right? We're recovering, we're repairing, we're bringing you back into your space. But there was very few things of creativity of propelling you. And like a rocket just took off in the past couple of years, especially after our retreat. It's been like, hey, time to create and propel people. And so I am beyond excited. This is such a creative outlet for me. This is where, we get to imprint and hopefully call others to do more and do the same. And so yeah, dive in, enjoy.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, brother.
Hey, it's Bobby. Thanks for listening to today's show. For more, follow Student of Intention at www.studentofintention.com. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.